Hello everyone, welcome to How to Tutors, and today we'll be doing a poetry analysis of Sonnet 130, also known as My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun by William Shakespeare. Stay tuned for more. About the poet, William Shakespeare. He was born in 1564 and died in 1616. He was an Englishman. He was born and died in Stratford-upon-Avon. He was married to Anne Hathaway and they had 3 children. He is still known as one of the world's greatest poets, dramatists, and playwrights. He wrote 37 plays and 375 poems. A brief summary of the poem. Shakespeare uses 8 anti-compliments to describe the uniqueness and non-idealized beauty of his beloved. However, in the couplet, he states that because she is normal and real, he does not need to exaggerate her looks or his love for her. He loves her just the way she is, perfect in her imperfection. In other words, she is perfect to him. He does not need an idealized and superficial woman. Although he seems critical and rather rude in the first 12 lines, the reader realizes that he is in fact sincere in his love for her, his beloved. He does not need exaggerated and unrealistic comparisons to declare his genuine love for her. In being so brutally honest, he has ironically given her a heightened beauty, simply because he does not dote her on her outward appearance. Historical context of the poem. This is sonnet number 130 in a series of 154 sonnets. It parodies, ridicules in other words, the famous and often over-the-top Petrarchan sonnets, also known as the Italian sonnets, in which poets describe their partners in highly exaggerated and unrealistic ways. Although this poem contains similar themes as found in traditional sonnets, i.e. female beauty, love, and admiration, as well as romance, Shakespeare does not idealize his beloved. He describes her in ways which are realistic and therefore more accurate and real, something that the everyday person can perhaps relate to. The diction used in this poem: mistress, the woman I love. Coral, a hard stony substance, typically forming large reefs in warm seas, known for its bright red or pink color. Dun, a dull grayish-brown color. Wires, ornamental headgear for females during Shakespeare's time, often contained gold wires. It was quite normal to compare blonde hair to the gold wires in that headgear. Blonde hair was fashionable then as now. The mistress, however, has black, not blonde hair, damasked, patterned in pinks and red. Reeks, smells or stinks. Grant, admit, go, walk as if floating on air. Treads, plods, tramps, stamps, not a delicate movement. Rare, precious, unique, any she, any other woman, go, walk as if floating on air, belied, falsely portrayed. Let us read the poem in detail to gain more insight. Sonnet 130, My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun? If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks, and in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my lover's ray, as any she belied with false compare. Form or structure of the poem. This is a Shakespearean or Elizabethan sonnet. It consists of 3 quatrains, basically stanzas of 4 lines each, and a rhyming couplet at the end, consisting of 2 lines. The rhyme scheme is consistent with this format: A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. The couplet serves as a final argument to drive home the speaker's point. The rhythm of the point is consistent to and follows traditional iambic pentameter. There are 10 syllables in each line. Line by line analysis. Line 1. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Mistress. This was a more general reference meaning love or darling. It is not as the term is used today. When we use the word mistress, it's usually to refer to a woman who's in a relationship with a married man. But back then, it just referred to someone's lover. When Shakespeare was writing the sonnet, it was all the rage to compare a lover's eyes to the sun and sunlight. But Shakespeare completely negates this, using the phrase nothing like to emphasize the fact that this female's eyes are not bright. They're not as sparkly as the sun. They don't draw you in. In this simile, the mistress's eyes are being compared to the sun. The sun creates the image of something bright. They're not as sparkly as the sun. They don't draw you in. In this simile, the mistress's eyes are being compared to the sun. The sun creates the image of something bright and shiny. However, since the mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun, her eyes are the opposite of bright and shiny. They are dull, in other words. The speaker's use of the simile indicates that the woman's eyes are just plain and ordinary or nothing special. Line 2. Coral is far more red than her lips red. Coral is a hard, stony substance, typically forming large reefs in warm seas, known for its bright red or pink color. So it was the perfect color for the perfect female. If your lips were bright red and coral, you were the ideal image of beauty. However, her lips are not as red as coral. There is nothing special about the color of her lips. She has ordinary plain lips. One could even say dull. Line 3. If snow be white, why then are her breasts dun? Dun, a dull grayish-brown color. At that time, it was a huge compliment to have your skin compared to snow, to be fair, as white as snow. His mistress has a dull complexion. Dull is a word often used to describe the color of a horse and not something a woman would be thrilled to hear about. It makes her sound ugly and plain. Line 4. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. Hair was often compared to golden thread. This metaphor compares her hair to black wires. It is not soft and flowy, but hard and spiky. She has pretty black hair. Lines 5 to 6. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses I see in her. Damasked means pattern of mixed colors, in this instance red and white. He says he has seen beautiful roses patterned in pinkish red colors and white, but his mistress's cheeks do not remind him of them at all. He sees no such roses in his mistress's cheeks. Her cheeks are pale. This emphasizes that his mistress is not the perfect female model. And in some perfumes, is there more delight than in the breath from my mistress reeks? Reeks is a very strong and pleasant smell. Some perfumes are far more fragrant than the smell of her breath. This is deliberately shocking and offensive because who likes to be told they have bad breath? To emphasize she is just an ordinary person. She is human. This idea of her being an ordinary person and not a goddess is further explained in lines 11 to 12. Lines 9 to 10. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. He admits that he loves to hear her speak, but the sound of music is better than the sound of her voice. Lines 13 to 14. And yet by heaven, I think my love so rare as she belied with any false compare. And yet introduces change, yet by heaven. He denies that she possesses any heavenly qualities, yet he swears by heaven his love is sincere. The speaker thinks that his mistress is as wonderful and unique as any woman who was misrepresented, belied, by an exaggerated comparison or false compare. The couplet at the end of the poem drives home the speaker's main point, that unlike other people who write sonnets, He does not need flowery terms or fancy comparisons. He can just tell his mistress plainly and simply that he loves her for who she is. He embraces her flaws. He loves her just the way she is. Poetic devices used in Sonnet 113. This sonnet contains various metaphors and similes. Lines 1 to 4 contain a comparison each. He states that her eyes are not as bright as the sun, her lips are not as red as coral, her skin is quite dull and her hair is wiry. Lines 5 to 12 contain a comparison extended over 2 lines. Her cheeks are quite pale, her breath reeks, and he would rather listen to music than to her speak. She also walks on the ground like an average human, certainly not a goddess. However, these are inverted to become anti-compliments in a way. Some readers might perceive these as insults at first, until the couplet states so elegantly that he loves her as she is. So by telling the reader exactly what his beloved is not, we see and hear how perfect she is despite her imperfections. There are also various uses of alliteration and assonance in the poem. Look at the repetition of the letter W in line 11, for example. These poetic devices are generally used to emphasize the words and sounds to drive home the image. Repetition occurs in lines 2, red, and 4, wires. This again emphasizes the importance of the color and texture. The idealized patriarchal woman had blood-red lips and golden luscious hair, but his beloved does not have any of those qualities, and she still stands out above the rest. Anastrophe, the natural order of words is inverse, meaning switched around, occurs in lines 6 and 7, but no such roses see I in her cheeks, and in some perfumes is there more delight. This places the emphasis on the roses and perfumes, again mocking the patriarchal ideal, which is quite unrealistic. Hyperbole abounds in the poem. All of the comparisons are exaggerated. This emphasizes the absurdity of the patriarchal ideals. This makes you realize that it's not realistic. He exaggerates the imperfections of his beloved to prove his point. This makes us relate to her more because most of us are like his beloved. We don't wake up with beautiful blood-red lips and rosy cheeks and fine luscious hair. The tone of the poem is satirical. In the first 12 lines, when he refutes and mocks the patriarchal ideals, he is sincere and almost complimentary in the couplet. When he states that he loves her in spite of her perfections, he loves the real her. Themes: escape from idealism. Shakespeare does not idealize his beloved. She, unlike the patriarchal ideal, is real, and he loves her despite her imperfections. He states that clearly in the couplet that people who describe their partners with idealized comparisons are liars. This emphasizes the absurdity of idealism. Femininity. This sonnet addresses the problem of stereotyping female beauty by setting unreachable standards for it. The fixed definition of beauty is unrealistic and will make females inferior by not achieving the ideal standards of beauty. He questions real love. We should love our partners in spite of their imperfections. Love. The speaker expresses his love for his beloved. He describes this value of love. He states that real love is not based on outward appearances and idealized looks. His love is based on connection and emotion, not the superficial. The tone. The tone is mocking, satirical, tongue-in-cheek, and in the couplet it is adoration, sincerity, appreciative, and impassioned. The mood is playful, not based on outward appearances and idealized looks. His love is based on connection and emotion, not the superficial. The tone. The tone is mocking, satirical, tongue-in-cheek, and in the couplet it is adoration, sincerity, appreciative, and impassioned. The mood is playful, humorous, and guys, that is it for our analysis on My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun. Let us know what poem you'd like us to do next, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.